Okay, so this time we're going to talk about compressors and equalization. So these are the two tools really that help make your recording sound a little bit more professional and also help just clean them up and make them sound good. So we're going to start off with compressors. So we do have an FL Studio compressor, but we're going to use Classic Compressor, which is the one that I recommend using in class, which you can get from my website, kstandish.weebly.com. Go to the Communications tab, go to Audio Engineering, and then you'll see at the bottom of that there'll be a list of resource links. You'll see where you can download the Classic Compressor, and then you'll be able to install that into FL Studio. Okay, but again, this works the exact same way. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up that Classic Compressor. So what we have here is we have a threshold, a ratio, knee, attack, release, and level. So the thing that we need to worry about really is our ratio and our threshold. We're not going to worry so much about our knee and our attack and our release. We're just going to keep those as what the default setting is. Okay, our ratio starts off at about 2.5. So again, if you go on here, you can see where it does show up when I click on it. So you see the 2.5 to 1. It also will show up here. So as you start scrolling through, you'll be able to see up there. Not all plugins do that. This just happens to be one that does. Okay, so for us, since we're just learning about compression, we're going to go with about a 2.5 ratio. So what that basically means is anytime that a loud signal goes through, it's going to squash it down to about 2.5 times of what it was before. Okay, so that's what a compressor does. Anything that's a really loud noise. So if I'm just talking normal like this, and then I talk louder like that, it's going to squish down the louder part so that it sounds more normal volume, like as I'm talking right now. And then what my threshold does is that allows me to dial in so that it makes the compressor actually work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play, and I'm going to single out the citrus here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep adjusting this until I see this light right here. So it's going to turn red until that just starts kind of blinking every so often. Once it's doing that, then I know the compressor is working and it's compressing my audio down the way it's supposed to. Okay, so I'm just going to press play and then just watch me adjust this until you start seeing that blink. Okay, so you saw where it was starting to blink. Basically, that's starting to work, and that's what we want. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't really talk while the audio is going because the audio of FL Studio drowns out my voice, but that's what we want for that. Okay. Now, if I dial that in and it ends up making my sound quieter, I could use this level output here and adjust it and make it louder. So right now, it does turn it up to about 8 dB, which you may not want. You may notice that when it does play it and you've had it mixed over here in your mixer, and then it becomes louder. Once you put the compressor on, just turn it down and be back at the volume that you want. Okay, so that compressor is now working. So let's talk about EQ. Okay, for FL Studio, we want to use parametric EQ too because this gives us a nice visual aid here. Okay, so each one of these are different bands. Over here are your bass bands, so where you'd hear bass drums and bass guitars and things like that. And it's also where you're going to hear soft rumbles where your voice doesn't necessarily, or your ears actually can't really hear it, but it does muddy up a mix. So there's some things that we can do for that to help make things sound better. Over here is your treble sound, so this would be like hi-hats and snare drums and things like that, where it's going to be higher pitched type instruments. So that's where we can adjust that. So on vocals, we may have to boost this up a little bit and turn things down over here. So think of each one of these as actually just a volume. So you have different frequencies, which we talked about in class. And what those frequencies are going to do is, or what you want to do with these frequencies is turn them up. So if you have a frequency that's making a sound not sound very good, you want to turn that frequency down and it'll help it sound better. Okay, if the voice is not very clear in the song and it sounds kind of bassy or something like that, you'd want to turn down the bass over here and turn up the treble just a little bit to help make it pan out a little bit. And generally, we could do a high-pass filter, which would be down here at the end. And what that does is turns off all the rumble of a voice or a certain instrument, which is good because then if our ears can't really hear it, again, it's just muddying up the mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play, and I'm going to look and see what's happening here, and then I'll turn off the music and then talk about what we saw. So if you noticed on that, the darkest colors was roughly about right here, which is probably the strongest frequency that's hitting. Okay, you'll notice that there wasn't a lot of bass here and there wasn't a lot of treble. So one thing I can do is if I pull this straight down here, it's going to turn it into a high-pass filter. Okay, and I can also adjust here where this box goes. Okay, and make this more of a steep type of incline. And then where you see this go here, if I keep adjusting through here, and all I do is I press down the left button and I roll down or up. Okay, so this, you'll notice it says high pass up there in the upper left hand corner. Okay, again showing right up here, it says that it's high pass, which is what we want. Okay, and so then I'm going to press play again, and I'm going to just adjust this to make sure I don't cut off any of the sounds that I want, but I'm going to get rid of the rumble that was down here. So again, that's something I can't really hear, but I can see that there's nothing there, but it is very slightly pink, so I want to get rid of that. So I press play again. So that's good there. This is a MIDI instrument, so there's not a lot of stuff that's bad, but I'm going to just adjust these just so you can hear the differences with turning them up. And really, this is, you have to use your ear and train your ear to hear those frequencies and pull them up and down. This isn't something that you're going to get right away. This is what takes practice. This is why we've been practicing it all year when we've been doing it. So again, I'm just going to press play and adjust these up and down so you can hear the differences in them. Okay, so that just gives it a, again, it's turning those volumes up and down. And generally you want to go in little chunks at about 3 dB at a time. Okay, so that's decibels. Okay, so if you see, again, up here, you'll see where it says -2 as I'm dragging down, -2.8, 2.9, 3. So we want to go in chunks of 3. Okay, and again, we can also go to like here, and we can adjust this to move it left or right, which is the same as us dragging it. The other one that we can't do by just dragging is here, where we can make this more narrow, so it's not taking out some of these other frequencies around it if we want to dial in more closely on a certain frequency. So like if you notice it says 2847 here, if we want to just focus mostly on that frequency, we can turn this way up, and it's going to basically just be on that one. So if I pull it down, again, it's going to be narrow. And I can expand it out, and it's going to be kind of more natural if you have it something like that as opposed to just that narrow one. But sometimes doing a narrow one is what it takes because there's a harsh frequency that's hitting. All right, so that's EQ and compression in a nutshell. Again, we've went over this several different times in class, so hopefully you got a good grasp for that. And hopefully now you've got a good grasp of the software and a couple things that will help you out. There's other things like delays that will help give you kind of an echo effect. And again, you can dial that stuff in using these knobs here to how much you want it to be on your signal. Delays, you generally don't want a full level being on that. And again, it's a lot of experimentation, paying attention in class when I demonstrate things, because I'm showing you stuff that you can actually use in your own projects. All right, so hopefully this will be helpful as well.